Welcome to the liberating river where spiritual freedom meets soul-aligned wealth. I'm Wanda.
Today, we're talking about generational wealth. When most people hear the phrase generational wealth, what do we normally think? We immediately picture trust funds, real estate portfolios, stock accounts, or large inheritance, passed down from parents or guardians to their children. The conversations usually revolves around numbers. How much was left? How much was invested? How much grew? But the deeper truth is something rarely discussed. The most powerful forms of generational wealth often never appear on a balance sheet. Why? Because what actually transfers across generations faster than money is psychology. Mindset transfers faster than assets. A child may not inherit millions, but they almost always inherit ways of thinking. They inherit how their guardian reacted to bills. They inherit how stressed the guardian might have showed up during financial hardships, or they inherit whether money conversations were calm or explosive. They inherit whether wealth was seen as opportunity or danger. And those invisible inheritances often determine whether future money grows or disappears. Research from wealth psychology studies show that approximately 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation. Think on that. Really think on that right there. 70% of that second generation loses their wealth. And about 90% by the third generation, according to data frequently cited by the Williams Group Wealth Consultancy. Interestingly, the primary causes were not based on bad investments. It was based on knowledge, communication breakdown, the lack of preparation, and of course, the unaddressed family dynamics. So what does that mean? That means wealth rarely disappears because of markets. It usually disappears because of mindsets. If someone inherits money, but also inherits anxiety, avoidance, or impulsive behavior, what do you think is going to happen? The money often follows that thinking. But if someone inherits emotional regulation, patience, and long-term thinking, this is the amazing part, even the modest resources can grow over time. So the real question becomes, which form of assets are families and environments passing down? That's the real question. Are families passing down assets, money, trust, or are they passing down the ability to manage assets? I personally learned through the avenue of anxiety, avoidance, and hoarding. I was afraid to have money because I knew what was going to happen. And I know what I saw and I didn't like it. But the truth of the matter is, I didn't know how to change that. I didn't know there was anything else. I didn't know how this trajectory, my financial trajectory, could change. As I got older, in college, got in the workforce, I had multiple opportunities to connect with people that helped adjust my focus, that helped adjust the trajectory that I was in. And those are the times when people talk about God winks and God put people in your life. God used those opportunities to provide me with knowledge. He provided me with a way of escape. But that only happened because I was actually already open to being shown something different and learning something new. What I experienced was the shift that changed how I define wealth itself. And that's what many of you have to go through, that shift. And it is up to you. Instead of seeing wealth as what you have in your bank account or what you leave behind financially, you begin seeing it as what you install mentally. Because regulated decision making is the rebuilder of your life. Regulated decision making rebuilds your life. An unprepared mind can and will most likely lose everything. That is why generational wealth conversations must be deliberate and expand beyond inheritance discussions and include behavioral inheritance. Whether intentional or not, let's just be honest, right? Whether intentional or not, every family is passing something down. What are you going to choose? The only real question that needs to be in the forefront of your mind is whether you're going to empower or limit. So why money alone does not create wealth? Why is that? There's a dangerous myth that if you simply give the next generation enough money, their future becomes secure. History has repeatedly shown the opposite. Without the psychological infrastructure to manage money, wealth often becomes pressure instead of protection. Money amplifies behavior. It does not correct it. Let's really think about this. Let's really do this. If someone already struggles with impulsive decisions, what do you think more money is going to give them? More money gives them more opportunities to act impulsively. If someone avoids difficult conversations, more assets will often create more complex conflicts. If someone equates spending with self-worth, higher income may simply increase financial volatility. Let's sit with that for a minute. You know, financial planners, they sometimes refer to this as sudden wealth syndrome. I didn't even know that. I was really shocked that there was actually a word for this. A psychological condition where individuals receiving large financial gains experience anxiety, confusion, or destructive spending patterns. That's deep. It is not because they are irresponsible. Not really. I'm going to say not all the time, because it might be some people. But I will say all the time, not all the time, but because they were never emotionally prepared to manage financial power. Just look at the results of a lot of people winning the lottery. They were not prepared to manage that type of financial power. Wealth requires 3 layers. Did you know that? If you didn't know, now you know. I was even educated when I was diving into this. So the layers are financial capital, knowledge capital, psychological capital. Think of it like this. If you had no seed in your hand, you know how farmers go out there to plant seeds? What if they had no seeds? Would they have a harvest? You have to have something already tangible before you can go planting anything as a farmer. Just bear with me. So The seed is not representing the money. Most people say, oh, seed, money. No, no, no. The seed is not representing the money. It is representing the knowledge and knowing that money can be produced and reproduced. Catch that? That's the psychological side of things. God moves from this truth. God made us to know and walk with the knowing. That's why God has always encouraged knowing. And they talk about it. The people perish from the lack of knowledge. And God always wanted us to be in a place of dominion, not over people, over elements of life. That is a higher level of thinking. You work from spiritual knowledge, you sync up with the I am within you. So thinking from dollar to dollar is a lower level and outside of your rightful place. You have to sync back up to where you really belong. That's why it seems so confusing. That's why it's irritating, because you know your inner being knows you can be at a better place. What I realized in seeing those three layers, what has been taught is actually we've been teaching the layers in the wrong direction, in the wrong order. Most people only focuses on the first layer. If we look at it in the order that is normally shown, financial. The financial capital layer is heavily talked about. And you already know what that is. Like I said, that's the money and the assets, right? But what I realized is this: if financial capital is missing, the end result is no resources to grow, zero money. Sure, that's a simple fix. But the other two capitals, they weigh a lot heavier in our lives. So what is knowledge capital? Knowledge capital is the financial education. It is training your mind to understand how finance works and how it affects your relationship with money. If knowledge is not gained, poor decisions will be the results. So where does that leave psychological capital? Well, psychological is dealing with your emotional regulator. That's what I call it. It's the emotional regulator. It is your mind. It is the thermostat controlling your mindset. It directly affects your mindset. And I think, to tell the truth, we need to reverse the order. We need to work well on our mindsets first, work psychologically, get the knowledge capital strong, get the education. You might even do the two together and then be concerned about the financial. Because if those two are strong in your life, the only result is financial stability and generational wealth. So now here we are. I'm going to tell you this: most successful families and individuals intentionally build all three. You can look on any YouTube channel. You will see they talk about work on your mind, they read books, and they build. I ain't make it up. You could look at anybody. They work on their mind, they read books, which is still working on their mind, but they're getting educated, and they are making money, and they have made money. True wealth is not measured by what you give, by what you save. It is measured by what the next generation can sustain. That sustainability depends far more on behavior than income. This is why some families with moderate income create stability for generations, while some wealthy families experience financial collapses within decades. That difference typically comes down to how money was treated Was it a tabooed topic? Was it a stress trigger or a teachable life skill? And think about this. Wealth is not preserved by secrecy. It is preserved by preparation. Stay tuned. To be continued. Coming next week.